What up, guys? The Bench Buddies are back. After a month hiatus, I am back with some MLB content dropping here all throughout next week. So make sure you guys are subscribed. If you aren't, make sure you go hit that button. If you don't think you are, go check. Maybe you aren't, and could gain a subscriber. Does nothing for you guys. Helps me out grow this channel. But let's get into it. I'm talking about MLB preseason power rankings 30 through 21, and we'll start with the Colorado Rockies. Last year, only 43 wins, awful season for the Rockies, but they added some new pieces to help bolster that lineup. Eduardo Julien, I think, is going to be a great bat, a consistent bat for that lineup and that second base. Willie Castro, what he did last year with the Cubs was pretty good. Hopefully, he continue that here at Coors Field. And Jake McCarthy coming over from Arizona in a trade where they traded away Josh Groves. Obviously, you can see there in the subtractions the starting pitcher. So, big emphasis this offseason for the Rockies on addressing that lineup. And, you still got Hunter Goodman. What he did last year with his home runs was pretty crazy. I mean, they projected him, as you can see there, hitting third and hitting 28 home runs. RotoWire has them projections. And Ezekiel Tovar, after what he did in the World Baseball Classic, I think he can carry that over and maybe ignite this Rockies offense pretty good standards. Because you can see there on the left, bottom five in everything except stolen bases, and they were only 23rd in stolen bases last year with 87. So this team has a lot to climb hitting wise, but pitching wise, I think it's going to be a decent rotation. It's the first year that I've cared about baseball, I think in like 10 or 12 years, it feels like, that the Rockies don't have Yermain Marquez on this team. They lost him in free agency. They got rid of Michael Toglia, Orlando Arcia, and Drew Romo, but they brought in some good pitchers. They brought in Lorenzen, who had a great World Baseball Classic. Quintana, who pitched in the World Baseball Classic as well, did all right. And Tomiyaku Sugano, I think that's how you say his name. I'm not the best at names here, but I know he was with the Orioles last year. And if he can put up kind of a similar season, except in Coors Field, I think the Rockies will take it. And, headlining this rotation is going to be Kyle Freeland. Um, all these guys' ERA is projected over 5, but if you can get under 5 with Colorado, you're probably going to be a really good pitcher this year. And I think that could be Chase Dollander. He's the name to look out for in that rotation. Struggled later in the year, but now he had, after the call up last year, he has some major league experience, and I think he can take that into this season. And, this Rockies team, I mean, what are you going to do? Over, under a 53.5? Where are you guys going to side on that one? Well, for me, I am going with the over on this one. How can you not root for the Rockies to win 54 games this year? I know it's an 11 game difference for last year if you compare the two, and I think they can do it. I think this team is a little better on paper wise. They made the moves to at least compete in more games, and I think this team in one run games was had an awful win loss record. So a few of those go their way, maybe get some better WAR players in here like Willie Castro and Eduardo Julien. I think this team can definitely win 54 games. I'm not saying they're going to win 60, but I think they can get that over. Moving to 29, it's the Washington Nationals. And last year, I don't want to say it was a step back, but it wasn't pretty. Um, you know, Mid 20s for every stat category on the offensive side. And then the pitching, that's kind of where it went downhill. They had the fourth most walks, 214 home runs given up. So more than one home run given up a game. ERA was almost dead last. And what did they do? They got rid of their best pitcher because of that. And it was Mackenzie Gore. They knew that they could get a lot back for Mackenzie Gore, and unfortunately they didn't. I don't think they personally did. You don't see any additions from the trade, in my eyes, that are going to be huge guys moving forward for them. But what did they do to replace Mackenzie Gore? Brought in some starting pitching names, and they brought back Josiah Gray, brought in Zach Little, brought in Miles Mikolas, who I don't know how he still has a job somehow, and Ken Waldichuk. So you can see there, Mikolas and Little are projected to be in the starting rotation. Gray, Mikolas, Gray and Waldichuk are kind of bullpen arms or minor league guys that I think could make some, starts this year for the Nationals. And then Colonial Perez and Drew Smith round out the bullpen there. But subtractions, losing Josh Bell, I don't think it's a huge loss for them, and losing Paul DeJong didn't really do much for them. So this Nationals team is young. We've seen that already. CJ Abrams, James Wood, Dylan Cruz, all those guys have to have better years than they had last year for this Nationals team to get over that over under win total of 65 and a half wins. But I don't think it's going to happen. The NL East is loaded. The Braves are healthy. And with that being said, there's got to be one team that just unfortunately doesn't get to 70 wins. I don't think it's going to be the Nationals. And it's going to be pretty close for them to get to 65. And if I'm picking a side, I'm definitely going with the under here. 28, it's the St. Louis Cardinals. And this team, did okay last year hitting the ball, putting it in play, but the results just weren't there. Home runs almost dead last in 29th. Didn't really steal a lot of bases with 89. And I think they finally decided to blow it all up after the season they had last year. They got rid of Wilson Contreras, Nolan Arenado, and Brendan Donovan all by trade, and Sonny Gray on the rotation side by trade. So they got rid of all those guys. And who'd they bring in? Absolutely nobody, it feels like, except Ty Pete in that Brendan Donovan trade. Zach Thompson, Ryan Stanek, and Ramon Urias are other guys that they brought in free agency, but they are betting on the young guys here. And you can see at the number one spot there in the lineup, it's going to be J.J. Weatherholt, obviously one of the best prospects in the game, projected to make the opening day roster and be the starting second baseman. And he would be leading off. And it's not a bad idea. If he can hit 250, what they're projecting right there, I think the Cardinals will take that in a development year. But speaking of development years, Nolan Gorman, Jordan Walker, the guys that were supposed to be kind of the cornerstones of this team have really not held their own in the major leagues. But they've showed glimpses, but this has got to be the year that they got put together, or they might be the next dealt for some younger guys in prospect standpoint. But good old Alec Burleson holding down the three spot in the lineup. And he's kind of the reason why this team, I think, has a fighting chance to get 70 wins this year. It's definitely not because of the rotation in my eyes. A lot of young guys and a lot of guys that haven't proven themselves. Dustin May is the only guy in this rotation that you can kind of trust, but if he's healthy. Matthew Liberatore, we've seen him the last few years, been shaky up and down, but he needs to be more consistent for him to be the number one. I mean, he's projected the number one, so we're gonna see where that takes him. And then you can see there, Palantine, McGreevy, and Leahy, I think is how you say it, all question marks because they're young guys that haven't really proven themselves in the major leagues. So the Cardinals pitching staff is going to be the big if, and with that, that's why I am going with the under for the Cardinals. I don't think they can get to 70 wins this year. I think they take too big of a step back. I think they can get to 65, but 70, I think, is just a tough task with yet again a loaded NL Central with the Cubs and the Brewers at the top. At 27, I have the Minnesota Twins, and they went young last year at the deadline. I think they only had traded, I think they traded 9 or 10 guys that were on the 26-man roster. And then they kind of kept that going as they head into the offseason. Got rid of a few relievers, Julian going to Colorado, Miranda, Vasquez, let them walk. But who did they bring in? Well, they brought in Carantini, Josh Bell, Gio Urshela, Orlando Arcia, and Ryan Kreidler, veteran guys to help bolster this lineup. And then didn't even focus on the starting pitching because their starting pitching, I think, is legit. It's one of the most underrated pitching staffs in all of Major League Baseball. But the bullpen, that's where they needed help. And they added some arms that you have definitely heard of. Liam Hendricks, Andrew Chafin, Julian Merriweather, Taylor Rogers, Dan Altavilla, and Justin Topia, all veteran relievers that definitely can make their mark for this Twins team. And it's going to be tough for them to get 73 and a half wins. I'm kind of surprised it's that high. Maybe it's because that rotation is so good. Joe Ryan could be dealt later at the deadline if this team is kind of, under 500 around that July 31st mark. Bailey Ober, Woods, Richardson, and Taj Bradley, I think, is a name to watch out for. Maybe he's one of those guys that just needs a new location. And if that's the case, then I think he could be a very good four-starter here for the Twins. But go look at that lineup, and that's what kind of concerns me here. Keishel has to have a good year for this lineup to really tick, and Royce Lewis has to be healthy all year, along with Buxton. Buxton last year, great, healthy all year. We'd love to see that, but just the pieces around him, unfortunately, couldn't get it done, and it's kind of why they got rid of everybody. But here we are. It's a whole new season, and the Twins, I know there's hope there, but the hope is pretty much not to finish last in the division this year. And with that, that means I am going with the under 73 and a half wins. I think they can get to kind of where they finished last year, 70 and 92, but anything over 74, I think is just a huge victory for the Twins, of course. If they can finish 500, I think they'll take that all day this year. But I just don't see them winning 74 games there, especially with the Tigers and Guardians competing at the top of this division and the Royals looking to knock on that door. 26 is the Los Angeles Angels, and unfortunately, they just keep wasting Mike Trout years. He's starting to regress a little bit, but it's still Mike Trout. You can't pitch right down the middle and he's going to miss. I mean, it's Mike Trout. Come on, we're talking about here. They did bolster the lineup around him, adding Candelario, Yoan Moncada, Vaughn Grissom, Chris Taylor, Adam Frazier, and Josh Lowe, which I love that piece coming from Tampa. Projected lineup here. You got Zach Neto, who's an absolute star in the making that needs to be talked about more. If he's on the other Los Angeles team, the Dodgers, everybody knows who Zach Neto is, but because he's on the Angels, he's not getting enough recognition. So give Zach Neto his flowers. Nolan Chanel, I think he can have a great year for this Angels team as he's projected hitting the three spot. But it's going to be that 7 through 9. Josh Lowe, Lau, Logan O'Hoppe, and Christian Moore. If all those guys can contribute, I think this Angels team could be making some noise this year in the AL West. And if they are going to be making some noise, it's because this rotation is performing way better than expected. Kikuchi is your number one, but after that, I think you could say you got number four starters. Grayson Rodriguez is unproven. Alek Manoah has looked awful this spring training. I don't even know if he's going to be the projected starter. Reed Detmers is all reliable. He's good for a 4 ERA and eat up innings for you. And then Jose Soriano, if he can take a step forward, I think he could be the ace by the end of the year with in Kikuchi possibly dealt at the deadline. But this Angels team, I know there's going to be some hope there. They did finish fourth last year in home runs, so at least they had some exciting games to watch for when they would score, it'd be in the home run. But this year, the over under at 70.5 wins. I am going to go with the over. I don't think it's going to be much over. I think it could be like a repeat of last year, going 72 and 90, somewhere along those lines. But I think they can win 71 games. It's just, and if they do that, it's got to be because this pitching staff, played a lot better than we thought they would. 25 is going to be the Chicago White Sox. And this team made some noise this offseason, bringing in a lot of guys from free agency and via trade. The most notable is Luis Angel Acuna from the Mets, along with Truman Pauly. And who did they get rid of in that trade? It's going to be Luis Robert Jr. going over to the Mets. And they lost a lot in the outfield. That's pretty much all they lost. Michael A. Taylor and Michael Tauchman, Martin Perez, Tyler Alexander, and Cam Boozer. But they bolstered pitching staff. It's going to be Anthony Kay, Sean Newcomb for starting pitching, and Eric Fetty, of course, who could be starting pitcher or a relief pitcher, projected starting pitcher right now. And the bullpen got some help. Sir Anthony Dominguez is, I think, the most notable name there, as you can see. Jordan Hicks coming over, the flamethrower. Lucas Sims, Ryan Baraki. I think this White Sox team could be making some noise in the AL Central. I'm not saying win the division, but I think they can be playing a lot of teams tough in that division. Um, Maybe a bounce back year for Jared Kelenic if he can figure it out off the bench. I mean, I don't know because they got a spot open in the outfield with Brooks Baldwin injury concern. If he's going to be ready for opening day or not, I assume he will be. But Austin Hayes, I think, could be a big name in this lineup that could get dealt at the deadline if he's playing well. But Kyle Teal, Chase Meredroth, Colson Montgomery, Miguel Vargas. I mean, it's a young team that could turn some heads when it's all said and done at the end of this year. But the big signing, obviously, Munetaka Murakami. What they did, go out to Japan, and not only did they sign one of the big names in free agency, but to a very favorable contract. I think it was what, 3 years, 2 years, 2-year deal. He led the NPB in home runs for it feels like as long as you can remember because he's just an absolute power threat. He's projected to hit almost 30 home runs this year. I think he can do that too. So for the White Sox, I'm still going to go with the under. I know I just kind of talked them all up there, but the pitching staff, I mean, look at that pitching staff. Any of those names jump off the page to you? No, not really. And because of that, I think it's going to be tough for them to get wins. They may be able to put up some runs on the board, but they're going to be giving up a whole lot more than they are scoring. At 24, I have the Miami Marlins. Now, this team was a big winner last year, going 79 and 83. Didn't make the playoffs, but it was a step in the right direction. And I think they made another step in the right direction. Yes, they got rid of their two best starting pitchers on paper in Edward Cabrera and Ryan Weathers. But Who did they bring in? I mean, they brought in Astoria Ruiz, who could be a good option off the bench for them, bringing some speed. Owen Casey from the Cubs in that Edward Cabrera deal, which I think Owen Casey could be one of the best breakout candidates this year in all Major League Baseball. Christopher Morel is an interesting name there. He's going to be playing first base there for the Miami Marlins, and if he can have a bounce back year, it's going to be huge for the Marlins' success in that lineup. Chris Paddock comes over in free agency. He's projected to be the number three, which is concerning there. Pete Fairbanks is a great signing. They could possibly trade him at the deadline for some prospects moving forward, unless this Miami Marlins team is competing in the division. And I think it's pretty possible if this rotation kind of lives up to the hype. If Sandy's back, Yori Perez can stay healthy most of the year. He's obviously legit. And Max Meyer, it's kind of make or break year for him. But one of the most underrated arms in the game is Braxton Garrett. What he does the last few years, it's been really good, but he's got to stay healthy. That's his big concern. If he can stay healthy, um, this Marlins team, I think, can be really good. I mean, you're looking at that lineup, Agustin Ramirez had a great year last year. Kyle Stowers, great year last year. Xavier Edwards, one of the most underrated players in the game of baseball because he doesn't hit home runs, so no one really cares for him. And, it's kind of how it is. Everyone wants the long ball these days, but he just is a player that can come in, get it done. With all that being said, I am going with the over for the Miami Marlins. I don't think they take a step back. I think this over under win total of 72.5 is a little low for them. Um, I can see them finishing pretty close to 500 here. It's an NL East division that, like we already saw one team in the Nationals. So at worst, I think they finish fourth in this division. And I think their ceiling could be second. It just depends on how other teams feel and how the injury bug, who it affects this year. But the Miami Marlins, definitely a team to look out for here early in the season. At 23, I have the Pittsburgh Pirates, and a lot of noise this offseason for the Pirates. A lot of the Paul Skeens, and then who is their big concern? Well, what did they do this offseason? Signed Ryan O'Hearn, signed Marcell Ozuna, traded for Brandon Lau and Jake Magnum, and there's some power for you. Brandon Lau's projected hit 23. Jake Magnum, more than likely coming off the bench there, but it's a good option. Marcelo Zuna, projected to hit 21 home runs this year. And then on Neil Cruz, if he can have a huge year, like let's say he does hit 25 or 25 and 25, at almost close to 80 RBIs. I mean, they'll love that there. But Brian Reynolds is the most consistent player for this Pittsburgh Pirates team. Go down the lineup there, it gets a little iffy at times with Joey Bart as the catcher. I know he's played better in Pittsburgh since he left San Francisco. And the pitching, that's where this is all going to come down to. I know Paul Skeens is obviously one of the best pitchers in baseball, if not the best. But after that, it's a kind of a big concern there. I know Jared Jones expected back, I think May. I believe it's May. So that's going to be a huge addition to that lineup. And I don't know, Bubba Chandler's got to take a step forward. Braxton Ashcraft is an interesting name there for Pittsburgh. Mitch Keller feels like he's been a Pittsburgh Pirate for 15 years. Then Jose Urquidy, I never can pronounce his name, is their number five right now, and that's kind of where I'm concerned. They need Jared Jones back ASAP, and because of that, I don't know. This team is interesting. A lot of people are in on them this year, and for that reason, I'm out on the Pirates. I don't think they're going to go that over of 78.5. I'm rooting for it to happen, though. Pittsburgh is kind of dying for a good baseball team again. It's been a while since McCutchen was in his prime that this Pittsburgh team has been good. And speaking of McCutchen, they didn't even sign him back, so that was kind of heartbreaking. Just letting him sit in free agency forever, it felt like. So this Pittsburgh team, I don't know, the NL Central's pretty good, like I already mentioned. I mean, we already saw one of the NL Central teams. So the Pirates, I think they're going to be a little better than last year. I think they probably win around 75 games, but just the 78.5 is just a little too concerning here for me. That's why I don't think they hit that over. 22 is the soon to be Las Vegas Athletics, still the Sacramento A's, playing in Sacramento for one more year this year, and then they go to Vegas next year. And the sexiest offseason, but they don't need to because the hitting, the lineup is pretty good for them. They traded away Max Schumann because they DFA'd him for bringing in a few guys, traded him to the Yankees. JJ Bleday let him walk and let some older veteran pitching go. And who'd they bring in? Well, Joey Meneses, I think he can be a good option off the bench. Andy Ibanez, my Tigers, he is going to be a great option off the bench there for the A's. Jeff McNeil is the interesting name here. Signing him, the second baseman, had a down year last year for the Mets, so it's interesting to see how he fits into this Athletics lineup. Then Aaron Savell and Mark Leiter Jr., two names for the pitching staff. They can definitely get this thing moving in the right direction, and pitching staff's going to be what it comes down to this year. Severino, Jeffrey Springs, and Savell are the big names that I think you can count on for close to 130 plus innings, maybe 150 plus innings. But after that, Jacob Lopez and Luis Morales right now are the projected 4 and 5, and that's where I'm kind of weary on this Athletics team. Not really rounded out. There's still a lot of questions for the bullpen and the back half of the rotation. But that lineup, like I mentioned, Nick Kurtz projected 35 home runs, Brent Rooker projected 34 home runs, Langeliers, Soderstrom, and Lawrence Butler all projected 25 plus. And I think that's kind of where this team's going to have to make their money is having guys on base and hitting home runs. And those guys are going to be Jeff McNeil, Jacob Wilson, and Max Muncy. Those guys are gonna have to show out and get on base. I know it's kind of tough there for the A's to have guys on base. It felt like last year. I know they had, the 12th most RBIs in the Major League Baseball, but it just didn't feel like enough. Still going 76 and 86. But once Nick Kurtz got called up, the lineup looked a lot better, and Langeliers had a breakout year. So I think the A's could be that sneaky team this year if they can find the consistency in the pitching rotation. That means I am going with the over for the A's. I'm in. I think they're close to an 81 ball club, maybe a little better than that right now. I wouldn't be surprised if they make a move at the deadline because they could be in contention for the AL West when it's all said and done. And the last team you're going to see here is going to be the Tampa Bay Rays. They're over under of 77.5 wins. And I think it's pretty fair for where they are right now. They're pretty consistently around 500 every year with everybody they lose and bring in. Obviously, a lot of names they lost here. Brandon Lau, Stuart Fairchild, Morel, Magnum, Josh Lau, Shane Baz, Adrian Hauser, and Pete Fairbanks. So a lot of Rays that have been there a while with, it's kind of just how the industry works here in Tampa. They once their contract's up, they're gone because they can't pay them enough. But who'd they bring in? Gavin Lux and Ryan Vilade from Cincinnati, which could be interesting pieces there. I especially think Gavin Lux could have a breakout bounce back type of year, because we haven't really heard from him in a while. Jake Fraley, Cedric Mullins, Justin Henry Malloy coming over from Detroit, Victor Mesa Jr. from Miami, and the pitching with Steven Matz and Nick Martinez. And both those guys are projected the 4 or 5 in the rotation because this rotation could be disgusting this year with Drew Rasmussen, Ryan Pepoy. I can't pronounce his name either, guys. I'm sorry. I'm not good at names. But Shane McClanahan, if he can return back to 80% of his ace status, this Rays team could be making some noise here heading into September. And this lineup is legit. I think Junior Caminero has a case to possibly put up an MVP type season with how good he can be. Yandy Diaz is consistent. Jonathan Aranda, he's not the sexiest hitter on the planet, but he gets it done. He's projected a 260 average, almost a 350 on base percentage, and you love to see that out of your three hitter. Cedric Mullins looking for a bounce back year. And the 7, 8, 9 hitters, that's kind of where I'm concerned. Chandler Simpson, obviously what he can do stolen base wise and getting on base is great. But, he's not going to hit for power. He's not going to hit for doubles in the gaps, but they don't need him to. They just need him to get on base for someone to hit him in. And that's kind of, I don't want to say Chandler Simpson's the reason why this Rays team's going to be really good or really bad, but it's just the bench isn't that deep. Justin Henry Malloy is going to have a bounce back year off the bench. I don't know. That's kind of where I lose the Rays here because if they have a few guys go down due to injury, I don't really see too much coming up from the farm system and helping this team out. And with that being said, I'm still going to go with the over here. I think this team is better than a 78 or more wins. I think, like I said, they could be 81 and 81 this year, and it's kind of right where everyone would expect them to be when it's all said and done. So the Rays still have a lot of work to do in a loaded AL East, but somehow, some way, the Rays are always good for finishing around 500. That's going to be it for my preseason power rankings for teams 30 through 21. Check back to my next video to see teams ranked 20 through 11. Make sure you hit that subscribe button on your way out. Till then, the Bench Buddies are out.